Springs Courtship by Clara Winslow. It was the summer of 1872 when Catherine Miller stepped off the stagecoach in Silver Springs, Montana Territory. The journey from Philadelphia had been long and arduous, leaving her cotton dress wrinkled and her chestnut hair falling loose from its pins. She clutched her carpet bag tightly as the warm breeze swirled around her, carrying the unfamiliar scents of pine, horses, and something wild and untamed that she couldn't quite identify. "First time out west?" the driver asked as he handed down her trunk. Catherine nodded, squinting against the bright afternoon sun. "Is it that obvious?" The driver chuckled. "Ma'am, everyone's got that same look when they first arrive, like they've stepped into another world entirely." And it was another world. The main street stretched before her, lined with wooden buildings that seemed both sturdy and temporary against the backdrop of towering mountains. Men on horseback trotted past, tipping their hats to ladies who walked with parasols, despite the casual nature of the frontier town. A saloon door swung open, releasing the sounds of a tinny piano and boisterous laughter. Catherine took a deep breath. This was her new beginning, far from the stifling expectations of Philadelphia society and the broken engagement that had sent her fleeing westward. Her uncle's letter had promised a position in his general store and a small room above it. Independence at last. "Miss Miller." She turned to find a tall man regarding her with curious eyes. He wore no jacket, just a simple shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. His face was weathered by sun and wind, with crow's feet spreading from eyes that seemed accustomed to squinting across vast distances. "Yes, that's me," she replied, suddenly conscious of her disheveled appearance. "Jackson Reed," he said, removing his hat to reveal dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. "Your uncle asked me to collect you. He's laid up with gout again and couldn't make the trip into town." Catherine felt her stomach sink. "Is he very ill?" "Nothing serious," Jackson assured her, his voice a low rumble that somehow comforted her. "But he'll be glad to see you." "May I?" He gestured toward her trunk. She nodded, watching as he lifted it effortlessly onto his wagon. There was something about him, a quiet confidence, perhaps, that put her at ease despite his imposing stature. "You're not what I expected," he said as he helped her onto the wagon seat. "Oh? And what did you expect, Mr. Reed?" A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Vernon described his niece as a proper Philadelphia lady. "I suppose I imagined someone more." "Delicate," she supplied. "Frightened," he corrected, climbing up beside her. "Most city folk take one look at this territory and want the next stage back east." Catherine smoothed her skirts. "I assure you, Mr. Reed, I'm not most city folk." His eyes met hers, a flicker of interest there. "No, Miss Miller, I can see that you're not." The ride to her uncle's store at the edge of town revealed Silver Springs in all its frontier glory. Children played in the dirt streets, women hung laundry outside modest homes, and men worked at various trades. It was smaller than she'd imagined but bustling with life. "Your uncle's store serves folks from miles around," Jackson explained as they approached a two-story wooden building with Miller's general merchandise painted across the front. "Ranchers, miners, homesteaders, they all come through here." "And what about you, Mr. Reed? What brings you to my uncle's acquaintance?" Jackson flicked the reins. "I run cattle on land about 10 miles north of here. Vernon supplies my ranch, and I supply his store with beef." The wagon pulled up in front of the store, and Catherine observed the wide porch with its barrels and stacked crates. A bell jingled as Jackson opened the door for her. "Vernon, your niece has arrived," he called out. A shuffling sound came from the back of the store, and moments later, a round man with a bushy white beard appeared, leaning heavily on a cane. His face lit up at the sight of her. "Catherine, my dear girl, look at you. The very image of your mother." Uncle Vernon hobbled forward to embrace her. "Thank you for fetching her, Jackson. I'm indebted to you." Jackson tipped his hat. "No debt between friends, Vernon. I'll bring Miss Miller's trunk upstairs before I head back." As Jackson carried her trunk to the living quarters above, Uncle Vernon showed Catherine around the store. Shelves lined the walls, filled with everything from bolts of fabric to sacks of flour to tools and household goods. A glass case near the counter displayed finer items, combs, pocket watches, and small bottles of perfume. "It's remarkable," she said, running her fingers over a stack of tinned goods. "You have everything one could need." "Not quite everything," her uncle laughed, "but enough to keep folks going. And now that you're here, we can expand our offerings. I've heard ladies complaining about the lack of proper notions and fineries. Catherine smiled. I'd be happy to help with that. Jackson returned downstairs, hat in hand. Everything's settled, Miss Miller. I hope you'll find your accommodations suitable. Thank you, Mr. Reed, for everything. He nodded, a gesture both polite and somehow personal. Until next time. As he left, Catherine couldn't help but notice how his broad shoulders filled the doorframe. Something about the man intrigued her, perhaps the quiet strength that seemed as natural to him as breathing. Jackson Reed is one of the good ones, Uncle Vernon commented, noting her gaze. Came out here 10 years ago with nothing but determination and built himself a respectable ranch. Folks respect him. He seems capable, Catherine replied carefully. Her uncle chuckled. That he is. Now, let me show you to your room so you can rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day. Saturday is when most of the ranchers come to town for supplies. Catherine's first few weeks in Silver Springs passed in a whirlwind of activity. She quickly learned the store's inventory and began improving its organization. Her suggestions for new merchandise were well received, and soon, women from all over the county were making special trips to see the new goods she'd ordered. Each Saturday, Jackson Reed would arrive with his wagon to deliver beef and collect supplies. Their conversations grew less formal, though he remained somewhat reserved. Catherine found herself looking forward to these visits, anticipating the sound of his wagon approaching. One Saturday in late July, Catherine was alone in the store when Jackson arrived. Uncle Vernon had gone to meet with the blacksmith about repairing some hardware. Good morning, Miss Miller, Jackson said, removing his hat as he entered. Mr. Reed, she nodded, feeling unreasonably pleased to see him. The usual order? And then some. We're preparing for a cattle drive next month. I'll need extra supplies. As she gathered his items, Catherine felt his eyes following her movements. How many head of cattle are you driving? About 300. Taking them to the railroad in Helena. That sounds dangerous. A smile flickered across his face. It has its moments. Weather, rustlers, difficult terrain, but it's a good living. Catherine tallied his purchases. Will you be gone long? 3 weeks, give or take. He hesitated. I was wondering if you might like to see the ranch before I leave. Sunday after church, perhaps. Vernon mentioned you've not ventured far from town yet. Catherine felt her cheeks warm. I'd like that very much. I'll bring the wagon around at 1 o'clock, then. After he left, Catherine found herself humming as she rearranged a display of ribbons. The prospect of seeing beyond the town limits and spending time with Jackson Reed filled her with anticipation. Sunday arrived with clear skies and mild weather. Catherine chose her blue calico dress and pinned her hair in a simple but flattering style. Uncle Vernon gave her a knowing look as Jackson arrived with his wagon. You two enjoy the afternoon? He said with a wink. And Reed, have her back before supper. The countryside beyond Silver Springs revealed itself as they traveled, rolling grasslands dotted with wildflowers, stretches of pine forest, and the ever-present mountains standing sentinel in the distance. Jackson pointed out landmarks and shared stories of his early days in the territory. When I first saw this land, he said, gesturing to the open expanse, I knew I'd found home. Took me 3 years of working other men's ranches before I could afford my own plot. Another 2 before I had enough to build a proper house. You've accomplished a great deal, Catherine observed. Jackson glanced at her. What about you? Vernon mentioned you were engaged back east. Catherine tensed. That's in the past. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pried. No, it's all right. She sighed. Charles Winthrop was a suitable match by all accounts, wealthy family, good connections. But as the wedding approached, I discovered he had entanglements with other women. When I confronted him, he acted as though I was unreasonable to expect fidelity. Jackson's jaw tightened. The man's a fool. His simple declaration, delivered with such certainty, warmed her. My parents disagreed. They wanted me to proceed with the marriage regardless. That's when I wrote to Uncle Vernon. I'm glad you did, Jackson said softly. They crested a hill, and before them lay the Reed Ranch, a sturdy log house surrounded by outbuildings, corrals filled with horses, and in the distance, cattle grazing on green pastures. It's beautiful, Catherine breathed. Pride showed clearly on Jackson's face. It's not much compared to Philadelphia mansions, but... No, she interrupted. It's perfect. He helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong and warm around her waist. For a moment they stood close, something unspoken passing between them. "Come," he said finally. "I'll show you around." The house was simple but well built, with a large stone fireplace and windows that caught the afternoon light. Outside, Jackson introduced her to his ranch hands, a diverse group of men who clearly respected their boss, and showed her the corrals where young colts frolicked beside their mothers. Later they sat on the porch with coffee and biscuits, watching the sun begin its descent. "Do you miss Philadelphia?" Jackson asked. Catherine considered the question. "I miss certain things, concerts, libraries, my childhood home. But not the constraints, the endless rules about proper behavior." She smiled. "Here I feel like I can breathe." Jackson nodded slowly. "The territory isn't without its hardships. Winters are harsh. There's isolation, danger from elements and sometimes from men. But there's freedom too." "Freedom is worth the hardships," she said firmly. He studied her face. "You know, when Vernon told me his niece was coming to help with the store, I pictured someone who'd last a month before fleeing back east. I've never been so glad to be wrong." Catherine met his gaze. "I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Reed." "Jackson," he corrected gently. "I think it's time you called me Jackson." "Catherine," she offered in return. The sun dipped lower, casting golden red light across the landscape. Neither spoke for a time, comfortable in the shared silence. "I should get you back," he said finally, though his tone suggested reluctance. As they rode back to town, Catherine felt something shifting between them, a connection forming, tentative but real. When he helped her down from the wagon in front of her uncle's store, his hands lingered a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for today," she said. "Catherine," he began, then paused. "Would you write to me while I'm on the drive? Letters can be sent to Helena, general delivery." Her pulse quickened. "I'd be happy to." A smile transformed his weathered face. "I'll look forward to your words, then." August brought scorching days and evening thunderstorms. Catherine kept busy with the store while writing long letters to Jackson, describing town happenings in her own thoughts. She found herself sharing confidences on paper that she might not have spoken aloud. 3 weeks stretched to 4 with no word from Jackson. Catherine tried not to worry, knowing that cattle drives were unpredictable affairs, but each day without news tested her resolve. Then one afternoon, as she swept the store porch, a rider appeared at full gallop, pulling up sharply in front of the store. It was Miguel, one of Jackson's ranch hands. "Miss Miller," he called, dismounting quickly. "Mr. Reed sent me. There's been trouble with the drive. Rustlers hit us near Helena." Catherine's blood ran cold. "Is he?" "He's alive," Miguel assured her quickly. "But injured. Shot in the shoulder. He's at Doc Wilson's place now. Just rode in with me." She didn't hesitate. "Uncle Vernon." "I'm going to the doctor's," she called through the door before hurrying down the street beside Miguel. Doc Wilson's small office was at the far end of town. When Catherine entered, the doctor was just finishing bandaging Jackson's shoulder. Jackson sat shirtless on an examination table, his face pale but his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "Catherine," he said, his voice rough, "you didn't need to come." "Don't be ridiculous," she replied, moving to his side. Up close she could see the exhaustion in his face, the lines of pain around his mouth. Doc Wilson gathered his supplies. "The bullet went clean through. Keep it clean, change the bandages daily, and rest that arm for at least 2 weeks. I'll check on you tomorrow." When the doctor left them alone, Catherine gently touched Jackson's good shoulder. "Miguel told me what happened." Jackson nodded grimly. 4 men tried to run off with 30 head. We stopped them, but not before one got a shot off. His expression darkened. "Lost 2 good hands in the fight." "I'm so sorry." She hesitated. "What about the cattle?" "Got most of them to market. The price was fair. The ranch will survive." He reached for her hand. "I read your letters every night on the trail. They kept me going." The simple admission touched her deeply. "Let me help you back to your ranch. You need rest." He shook his head. "Can't ask that of you." "You didn't ask. I offered." She fixed him with a determined look. "I'm coming with you, Jackson Reed, even if it's just to make sure you follow the doctor's orders." A slow smile spread across his face. "You're a stubborn woman, Catherine Miller." "Yes," she agreed, "and you do well to remember it." Catherine spent the next week at the Reed Ranch with Uncle Vernon's blessing. She took over the house, cooking meals, changing Jackson's bandages and keeping him company as he recovered. The ranch hands treated her with respect, clearly approving of her presence. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid shades of red and purple, Jackson turned to her. "Catherine," he said, his voice serious, "I've been thinking about us." Her heart quickened. "Oh?" "I'm not a man of fancy words or grand gestures, but these past months, getting to know you, then having you here caring for me," he took a deep breath. "I find myself thinking about you all the time, wondering what you'd think of things, wanting to share moments with you." Catherine felt warmth spreading through her chest. "I think about you too." He took her hand, his rough fingers gentle against her skin. "I know it hasn't been long, and you came west for independence, not to tie yourself to another man, so I won't rush you, but I want you to know my intentions." "And what are those intentions, Mr. Reed?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To court you properly, and if you'll have me, eventually to make you my wife." His eyes, usually so confident, now showed a hint of vulnerability. "I can offer you a good life here. Not an easy one, but one with purpose. And I promise you'd never have to doubt my faithfulness." Tears welled up in Catherine's eyes. "Jackson," she began, then found herself unable to continue. Concern crossed his face. "I've spoken too soon." "No," she said quickly, squeezing his hand. "No, it's not that. It's just, when I came west I was running from disappointment. I never expected to find someone like you." Hope dawned in his eyes. "Is that a yes to my courtship?" Catherine laughed softly. "Yes, Jackson Reed, that's a yes." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When their lips met, the kiss was gentle yet filled with promise, like the land around them, wild and beautiful and full of possibility. As the last light faded from the sky, Catherine knew with certainty that she had found her place in this rugged territory. Not just independence and a fresh start, but something far more precious, a man of honor who saw her strength as well as her gentleness, and a love that had room to grow in the wide open spaces of Montana. By early October, Jackson's shoulder had healed completely, and his courtship of Catherine had become the talk of Silver Springs. They attended church together on Sundays, shared meals with Uncle Vernon, and rode across the countryside when weather permitted. Catherine continued working at the store, but now spent weekends at the ranch, where she'd begun putting her own touches on Jackson's home, curtains at the windows, a flower garden taking shape beside the porch. The first snow fell early that year, dusting the mountains in white and bringing a sharp chill to the mornings. On one such crisp morning, Jackson arrived at the store with his wagon. "Bundle up," he told Catherine. "I have something to show you." They rode north of his ranch, following a stream that went through a small valley nestled between pine-covered hills. When they reached a clearing, Jackson stopped the wagon. "This land," he said, gesturing to the sheltered valley, "I bought it last week. 15 acres. Catherine looked around at the beautiful spot, protected from the harsh winds by surrounding hills. "It's lovely. Are you expanding the ranch?" Jackson smiled. "In a way." He helped her down from the wagon and led her to a flat area near the stream. "I thought we might build here. A new house. Our house." Understanding dawned on her face. "Jackson." He took both her hands in his. "Catherine Miller, I've fallen in love with you. Your strength, your kindness, your determination. The way you've embraced this land and its challenges." He dropped to one knee in the light dusting of snow. "Will you marry me? Be my wife, my partner in all things?" Catherine felt tears freeze on her cheeks in the cold air. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." Jackson rose and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that warmed them both despite the chill. When they finally parted, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver ring set with a blue stone. "It's not diamonds," he said apologetically as he slipped it onto her finger. "But the color reminded me of your eyes." "It's perfect," she said, admiring the way the stone caught the winter light. "Just like this place. Our place." As they stood together in the quiet valley, planning their future home and the life they would build together, Catherine thought about how far she had come from that first day in Silver Springs. She had sought independence and found so much more: love, partnership, and a sense of belonging in this wild, beautiful territory. The mountains stood silent witness to their embrace, and as the winter sun broke through the clouds, it cast a warm glow over the couple and the land that would become their home. The end.